Yo, what's going on, everybody? Pornatron here, and today we're going to be talking about all of the Elden Ring starter classes. I wanted to make this little run through of all the classes for all of the people that are new to the Souls games, and we're kind of going to go over like what all the attributes mean and what are the pros and cons of each starter class. For those of you who are familiar with the Souls games or even like Dark Souls 3, I think this is all just like rudimentary to you, but you might find some stuff interesting. So the first class, we're just gonna do them in alphabetical order, is the Astrologer. So this is definitely the sorcerer class or the magic build that you're gonna start off with. They're gonna, I think they call them glintstone sorceries in Elden Ring. So if you look here, the highest attribute is intelligence, which is your magic strength. So you're gonna be working at getting high intelligence and actually high mind. Mind is what controls like the amount of spells that you can remember at one time. So right off the bat here, just looking at all of these attributes, you're gonna notice that you have a low level of vigor. You also have low strength. You might have really good damage at the start. If there's an enemy that's fast or is kind of immune to sorceries, you're going to be in trouble pretty quickly here. But I feel like with the glintstone sorceries, you should be pretty good. This might be a safe build to choose. Definitely, you're going to be leveling up that vigor. Funny enough, Arcane in Bloodborne was kind of like the magic stat, but Arcane is like your luck stat in Elden Ring, so you don't even have to worry about that. It's funny that they chose Arcane as the wording for it. Let's move to the next one. Bandit class. So Bandit is like the thief class. Not quite the assassin class, but more like the thief in previous games. This is a good mix of dexterity and arcane and endurance. So you're probably gonna have like really good drops because you've got a pretty high arcane stat. So your discovery stat's gonna be pretty high to start off with. I bet you're gonna start with a version of like the bandit's knife, which has a really good bleed effect. I think there is a trailer, maybe I'll put it up here, and it showed this class dual wielding bandit's knife. And I think it also showed this class using items in the game that will use glintstone sorceries. So that's another cool thing about Elden Ring, is that there are items that will probably use sorceries or incantations or miracles without having to invest in those stats. So you can kind of experiment. Kind of like Ashes of War, but they're their own separate item. Kind of like in previous games where there was like almost like different fire bombs that were like, some of them did magic damage or things like that. But the bandit class is definitely like a thief class. You're gonna start off with a buckler, probably the bandit's knife, and maybe like a bow and arrow. Great if you like kind of like to sneak around and you're not there to like kill every single enemy, but I feel like with that low amount of vigor, you're gonna have to be leveling up vigor like pretty quickly here, and a low amount of strength. So most of your points are in dexterity, so you're gonna have to use dex weapons. All right, next, the Confessor. This is a dex and faith build, so you're gonna be using a mix of incantations and dex weapons. It's also got a good amount of mind stat, so you probably memorize a few incantations or a few miracles. Pretty cool looking starter class. So again, you got that mix between melee combat and miracles, so you don't have to pick one or the other. I think this would be a really good build to start out with if sorceries don't really appeal to you, because incantations in Elden Ring are kind of mixed with pyromancies from what we've seen. In the network test, it was like the Dragon's Breath incantation. Those were all miracles that you could learn. So if those appeal to you more than sorceries, then I would definitely go for like a Confessor build rather than starting straight all miracle. Hero class is kind of like the warrior class in previous Dark Souls games. So it's a very high strength, high vigor, and those are the two main attributes. And if you look, vigor is really high, endurance is high, strength is high. So you could probably pick this build, and every heavy weapon that you find, you'll probably be able to wield right off the bat with that 16 strength. Most other classes, you'll probably have to put a few points into strength before you could use certain weapons. This one, if you're going for a strength build and that's it, you don't want to mess with any sorceries or incantations, this is a good class to start off with. Again, you might not like the armor that they have on to start, because you'll quickly get rid of that stuff. So I wouldn't let that deter you. So if strength builds are your jam, go with the hero. All right, next is the prisoner class. I love that helmet. It looks hilarious. It's like a weird alien steel helmet. It almost almost looks like the man in the iron mask from way back in the day. It also kind of reminds me of the League from Bloodborne. I can't remember what the dude's name is. I'll put it up here. But the League guy, and he had like the bucket helmet with the one eye hole. That's what this kind of gives me vibes with. So this is also like a half dex, half intelligence build. So instead of like half dex, half incantations, like the Confessor, it's a different build for people who want to mess with a little bit of melee and a little bit of sorceries. So I feel like this is more like the assassin build in previous games, so like Dark Souls 3, where you'll probably start off with maybe like spook or some type of basic spell, and then also like an e-stock or like some type of like basic sword weapon. That way you can kind of mix both from the get-go. So you got enough points into intelligence and mind to where you can use some basic level sorceries without having to invest in any points, and you also have a decent amount of dex, so you can use some dex weapons as well. Great melee sorcery build that you might want to start off with, because sorceries definitely look like they're going to be powerful in Elden Ring. Next, we got the Prophet. So this is one that we saw in the closed network test. This is going to be your pure faith or incantations build. So you can see faith is its main skill point there at 16, and it's got a lot of mind. Incantations are looking really cool in Elden Ring. Previous games, when you chose a miracle build, like, you were gonna have a rough time. Like, yeah, some of the lightning miracles were really powerful, but you don't get those till like really late game. And from the network test, some of the incantations were like pretty awesome and like easily staggered enemies or easily killed a lot of enemies. I don't know if they nerfed that down a bit, but even still, if they like even decrease some of the incantations by a little bit, they're still gonna be powerful. So I think a miracle build could be a very good build to start off with. I just wouldn't choose it as your first time. Definitely not as your first time, but maybe in like your second or third playthrough. Samurai. This Samurai, exactly how it sounds. So it's going to be a high dex build, so you can use katanas. All of the Souls games kind of had like a samurai or ninja type build that used katanas. It just didn't have its own class. So I find this very interesting that they made it its own class. I think it's popular enough now that people want to play this type of character, like especially like with putting out a game like Sekiro and like the popularity of Ghost of Tsushima. People love being a samurai. So yeah, if you like katanas, if you like using a bow to kind of draw out enemies, this would be a really good starter class. And it looks like the armor set is probably pretty decent and probably has really good physical resistance. So this could be a really good safe class to start off with. And then the tried and true Vagabond, which is like pretty much like the knight class. It's like your like the standard go-to. This is probably the most forgivable class that you could pick. This is great for beginners. This is also probably great for veterans as well, who just want to do like a strength build or maybe start a quality build. So you're going to hear that term a lot if you're new to the Souls games, a quality build. So a quality build is where you have even stats in like strength and dex. So that way you could use big, heavy, big boy, super anime sword weapons, and you can also use faster dexterity weapons and maybe even mix in a bow and things like that. So you're a little bit more rounded out as a character. I would definitely recommend this for your first time playthrough, or maybe one of the other half dex, half incantations, or half dex, half sorcery builds, like the Prisoner or the Confessor. So the Prisoner or the Confessor or the Vagabond, those are the top 3 builds that I would recommend that you start off with if you're just starting out in these games. The Vagabond has a good amount of vigor, which I think is very important, especially for your first playthrough, because I find in the Souls games, you start off at a super low level and all of the enemies just can run a train on you. And I know for a lot of people that's not a lot of fun, and that kind of like turns you away from like wanting to progress in these games. I just challenge you, push through it, just farm basic bitch enemies that you know that you can take on, and then level up your vigor stat so you've got the health that you need to get through the game. But I feel like this build here, a Vagabond build with vigor at 15, I think you're at a really good place to start out. The Warrior, this is like your pure dex build. If you came from Dark Souls 3 and you use the Sellsword twin blades, like you dual wielded dex twin blades, this would be your jam. So you're gonna be fast, you're gonna have a lot of dexterity, you're gonna have a lot of quick attacks. So if you're not really into like really pacing out your attacks or looking for the right time to strike, you just like to mash R1 or L1 and maybe like dodge out of the way, this is gonna be your jam. Like, I definitely think you'll dig the Warrior class. Again, if any of their armor sets that they start off with don't appeal to you, don't worry about that, because you will find a new armor set really early on and you can customize, mix and match, and then we call it Fashion Souls for a reason. Elden Ring will have a lot of cool armor sets, so I don't want your starter class for what they're wearing to start to turn you off. Look at the attributes first and then that's who you should pick. And then we have Wretch. So you're probably wondering, who would pick this class? So level 1, has 10 in everything, not good at anything, has no armor, has a wooden club and a crappy wooden shield. Why would you do this to yourself? Again, if you're new to the Souls games, the only reason why you would pick this class is because you're doing a soul level 1 run. So you're doing a challenge run. You want to challenge yourself. You want the game to be relentlessly hard in the beginning. Sometimes the soul level 1 characters are a good place to start off with, because some of the items that they come with are maybe just like how evened out their stats are and how cheap it is to level up early on. I definitely would not recommend this to any first timer or anyone new to the Soul series, or even if you've beaten like 1 or 2 of the previous games. Don't pick Wretch as your first time. You're just gonna have a bad time. Pick one of the other safer choices. This is just for challenge runs. This is for people who like pain.
Meow.